For anyone reading our articles last year on the website, sourcegaming.info or source-gaming.com, you'll know I did several previews at Gamescom 2023 for upcoming titles, and one of these was Cavern of Dreams, a 3D collectathon platformer inspired by Banjo-Kazooie and other games of its generation. But especially Banjo-Kazooie, you can kind of tell when you play it. And at the time, I walked away thinking it was maybe a bit too faithful to the Nintendo 64 era, and the graphics just didn't look right to me. They were too sharp. As it turns out, the me from 6 months ago really just had a bad setup, because playing the final game on Nintendo Switch was a really enjoyable time. For starters, the issues that I had with the graphics were immediately alleviated with the option to add anti-aliasing to the game, which gave it a far more pleasant look, and it made it feel a lot more authentic. The game was also running a lot better than when I played it before, to the point that it might be one of the best 3D platformers I've played in some time. Cavern of Dreams follows the story of a little dragon named Finn, who enters the titular cavern to search for his missing younger siblings who have yet to hatch. They have been stolen by a mysterious bat villain, and Finn bravely entered the cavern to get them back. Supported by an ancient sage who lives within the cavern, Flynn enters a variety of different themed worlds, platforms through them, and helps out the locals, all in an effort to retrieve his unhatched siblings, as well as mushrooms he can use to feed them. When they do hatch, of course. The game actually does a pretty good job of putting the story into focus, without it feeling overbearing or like it's wasting your time, and by the end it delivers a pretty satisfying and heartfelt conclusion to its main narrative. But the part of the story that impressed me the most was the background lore. There is a much deeper plot going on in Cavern of Dreams that the player can piece together through encyclopedia entries, background details, and secret optional dialogue that really fleshes out the Cavern of Dreams and its inhabitants, as well as potentially provides background on Finn himself. It's not so subtle that it's easily missed, but it's also not required at all, and I came away very intrigued by the world being built here. It's clear the developer had a plan when designing this world. Speaking of design, I already brought it up, but the visuals are low poly in a way that perfectly matches the 90s, and 3D gaming on the Nintendo 64. When anti-aliasing is on, it looks just like a game that would come from that era. That includes the atmosphere. Finn is a cutie, and the first world is very charming, but as you dive deeper into the cavern, you get some of that late 90s creepiness coming into play. Think of situations like Clanker from Banjo-Kazooie, or the Haunted Mansion from Gex Enter the Gecko. It's unsettling, but in a good way that's fairly immersive. It also has many moments of wonder throughout, especially with some of the secret areas you can visit on the path to 100% and beyond, which I would recommend doing. The reward for rescuing every sibling is worth it in my opinion. In order to rescue your siblings, Finn will need to platform and take advantage of several unlockable abilities like a tail attack, glide, and bounce. Finn starts off with a roll, which is useful for getting around quickly, but it's only when combining this with other abilities can Finn fully explore his environment. The general game feel of the platforming segments is great, and the camera does a pretty great job at not getting stuck, even if it occasionally means the player gets a peek behind the curtains. However, it's not all perfect. Early on, some of Finn's only abilities consist of a high jump and a long jump, but pulling these off is not the easiest. The high jump functions similar to how it does in Super Mario 64, pressing the jump button again right as the player lands, but the timing is very strict in Cavern of Dreams, way more than it ever was in Super Mario 64, and I found myself whiffing jumps I really didn't think I should have early on. It's especially frustrating when there is so much verticality to some of the levels. And then there is the long jump. This one is particularly weird, as Finn has to jump and then tail attack as he is close to the ground. Finn will then use his tail to ricochet ahead, the angle dependent on how early or late you do the attack. It's a neat idea, but in practice I found it more frustrating and awkward than I imagine it was intended to be, and both of these abilities get made redundant by the bounce and glide respectively, although maybe that was intentional, who knows. If you can master these abilities, I know it is possible to sequence break as the world in Cavern of Dreams is fairly interconnected, in a way very reminiscent of Banjo-Tooie. Although the game is definitely designed with the player clearing out every world to 100% in order before moving on. But I guess that's always up to the player, and it does add quite a bit of replayability to the game for those who want to master it. Cavern of Dreams is a title inspired by the classics of its genre, and one that I think does a very good job of living up to those expectations. It's cute, it's fun, it has a really good reward for completionists, and a great story and plot behind it. Who knows if it will ever get a sequel, but if it does, you can expect me to be there day one. A special thank you to Super Rare Games for sending me a copy of this game to review. I hope it does them well. And a special thanks to all of you for watching. Let us know if you're a big 3D platforming fan, and if so, is Cavern of Dreams something you've had your eye on? On screen right now are our patrons, the $5 plus tier, and you can join them by following a link in the description below. If you can't support us monetarily, then that's okay as well. Just like and subscribe if you're feeling the vibe, and always remember to return to the source.